So this is going to be a very, very, very interesting webinar that we are going to do today. Today, we are going to talk about death. We're going to talk about death because today we're also going to talk about stage 9, which is the light behind the form. Now, most of what's going on in our country right now is because of an extreme fear of death. And we all have to recognize that death is something that not only are we not going to avoid, no matter how much we try, but death is a natural and very healthy part of life. And because death is a very natural and healthy part of life, yet we are so afraid of it and we spend so much time and energy pushing it away or trying to avoid it, we fail to recognize how it fits in. And because we fail to recognize how it fits in, we don't get the benefits of it. Death is something that is constantly around us. Death is a part of life. There can be no life without death. Imagine if everything on the planet that had ever lived was poof, right here and right now. How much quality of life, how much space would you have if everything that ever existed on the planet Earth was alive at the exact same time? There would be like less than no room. So this process of death is really the cycle of life where energy comes in and it expresses itself, and then it shifts and it fades and expresses itself in a different way, and then it changes forms, and then that expression comes up, and then it changes and it's going through its cycle, and then it shifts into what we would call death, which really is a changing form. Now, in this country, we have a lot of beliefs. Well, I won't say in this country, in humanity, we have a lot of beliefs, and a lot of those beliefs about what happens after death are actually based on the fear of death. And in reality, nobody really knows anything other than after death, things will be different. That is the only thing that we can say for absolute certainty. Now, we can say, I have this belief, and I really believe this, and I believe it, and I believe it, and I believe it. And a lot of people switch that belief for the word knowing. But in order to know, we have to experience. And there are people that have had what are called near-death experiences or after-death experiences in which they have clinically died and then been revived, and somehow the brain is recording what's going on because they come back with those memories. But even those people, having had that experience, they do not know if that's going to be the exact same experience the next time. So the only thing that we actually know about death is it is a change. Now, scientifically, we can prove that there is no such thing as the either creation or elimination of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only change forms. And so if we can see this life, this birth and death process as much more of a changing forms of the energy that makes up this thing that we call an us, if we can start to view it as that rather than a beginning, a hard beginning and a hard end, which is neither scientifically nor spiritually or traditionally valid. But if we can start seeing it as an actual cycle, it takes away a lot of the fear. It takes away a lot of the resistance that we have of looking into this process of that we call death. Okay. And in reality, if we look this as a transition, as a change, birth and death, as just changing forms, this is happening constantly around us. Our relationships go through birth and death processes. Our physical bodies, every cell in our physical body, it only has a particular lifespan. And at the end of that lifespan, that cell will go through a process, hopefully called apoptosis. And apoptosis is programmed cell death. And the longest any cell in our body is typically programmed is about 7 years. So in our body, the oldest part of our body is typically about 7 years old before those cells go through that transition and that energy is transformed and the new cells come up, and they're utilizing that energy and moving forward. So this body continues only because of that birth and that death process, that cycle of recycling and changing energy over and over and over and over again. This is the only way that life continues. So as we're going through this constant change process, we have to recognize that the more we set a solid boundary, a beginning or an end, the more that we set up fear and resistance and all this other stuff. I'm going to take a quick break real quick.
I guess he's trying to show us not to have the boundaries, so we can't have the expectation that he's going to be in front of us the whole time.
Okay, so we just had a birth and death process in this video. We can all thank Zoe for that great interruption coming in, making me shift my focus. But this is good because the new creation that's going to come out of that is going to be something different, something totally different than either one of us would have predicted. So in this birth and death process, if we can start seeing this as a change cycle, it's going to be a lot easier to embrace the change cycles that are constantly in our lives. Now, think about this. Your body is a collection of individual cells, right? Okay. How, if I were to chop off my finger, would that make me not me? What if I were to chop off my arm? Would I be not me? What if I were to chop off everything except for my head and somehow that head was still alive? Would I be a not me? Okay, so there's not like a part of my body that we can say is the me. Okay, I have a body, right? And this body is always constantly undergoing change. What about the mind? Okay, if I were to snap my fingers and all of a sudden I didn't have the ability to use my mind to do math, right? Would I still be me? What about my ability to take in light and create a picture that I call vision? If all of a sudden I was blind, would I still be a me? Right? How much of my mind would I need to take away before I was a not me? How much of my body would I need to take away before I was a not me? Right? And if we kind of think about this, well, if you could take away the body and you could take away the mind, there's this something else. There's this something else that we would call a me, and that from some lenses, that's called the observer. Okay, it's the part of you that is experiencing the body, the part of you that's experiencing the mind, but yet is not the body. Because in order to experience something, there has to be an experiencer and there has to be that which is experienced. So if I can experience my body, I'm not my body. If I can experience my mind, I'm not my mind. If I can experience my environment, I'm not my environment. If I can experience my family, I'm not my family. So there is this potential, there is this energy that is behind the physical form behind the mental form, behind all of the chemical and electrical reactions that make up this body-mind complex, okay? That observer, that core of me, that's the part that most of us are terrified of change of. And the more we confuse that observer, me, with the mind, the more we're going to be terrified when the mind changes. The more of our body that observer is identified as a me, the more we're going to be terrified when that body undergoes change. And in reality, change is the only constant that we ever will really experience in this physical form. So to have a fear of change, to have a resistance of change, to have this idea that things are not supposed to change, literally sets us up for pain and suffering. In Buddhist traditions, the root of all suffering is attachment to impermanence. Anything that is going to change, that we are attached and identified with or as it starts to change, we literally go through an experience of a death-like process. Again, when we were talking earlier in one of the other seeds of life, I was saying that there's a part of our brain, the instinctual brain, that builds this picture of ourselves, of our identity. And anything that we add into that picture, whether it's a car, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a house, whether it's a job, whether it's a societal role, the more we identify with that, the more that portion of our brain will literally put our body into a defensive mode, as whenever that identity, whenever that social construct, when that mental construct is attacked. Our body will literally send up an inflammatory response, or send out the white blood cells, an immune response, or send the body into a sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze response based on something that we have identified with, but is yet not actually going to be protected if our body goes into that defensive mode, because it's not a part of us. So there's a form of philosophy called Stoicism. And the whole gist of Stoicism, or I want to say the whole, but a large part of the gist of Stoicism is this concept of embracing the death process before we die. Dying before we physically die, so that the less and less we are identified, the less and less we're terrified of losing, the more joy we get when we have the opportunity to experience and having it. The knowing that it is impermanent, the knowing that this is only for a period of time, allows us to fully embrace and just suck the juice out of the experience that we're having in this moment, because we know that this will not last. And that can be a very, very good thing whenever we are talking about something that's painful or uncomfortable. And it's a great sense of relief of, this won't last. But if we embrace the impermanent aspects of life, with those sweet things in life, with the caresses from our lover, with the hugs from our children, with the comfort of waking up and sitting outside and watching the sunrise, if we can embrace those experiences with the knowing and the surrender to the fact that they will never be experienced again, it fuels us, it drives us into this deeper sense of being and experiencing, so that we can get more subtle nuance of how amazing that moment is. But every time that we try to keep things the same, we try to keep things energy neutral, like we talked about 2 sessions ago, what we end up doing is we end up wasting this very precious moment, either reminiscing on the past or projecting into an imaginary future. And we will bring in depression from the past. We will be depressed about how the past is not like it was, or we'll be depressed because something in the past made this like it was, or we'll be scared of the future. Okay. And every time that we're locked into this fear of impermanence, fear of death, fear of change, that robs us from the beauty and the amazing, unique nuances of this present moment. So, stage 9, the light behind form. The more and more we can recognize and experience ourselves as the thing that is shining the light on this experience, the thing that is observing this experience, but is not this experience, the more we can identify as the light behind the form, the more joy we're going to be able to experience and spread to others. The more peace we're going to be able to experience, the more satisfaction, the more fullness that we're going to be able to experience in this present moment. And in reality, this present moment is all we have. The past is just a memory. It only exists as a collection of neurons firing in your brain. An experience you think that you had. The future is totally wide open to be written. But the more we write that future with the fear of death, with the resistance of change, with literally the resistance to the process of life, the more we write our future with that because of what we're thinking, feeling, and doing right here and right now, the more of that we're going to create in the future. Because again, whatever we focus on, we energize. Whatever we put our attention on, we expand. We get more of it. So we come to a choice. Well, really, we've already made that choice. But in stage 9, this is really the full embodiment of that choice that we made back in stage 4, which is this will not continue. I am no longer going to play small, no longer going to play less than who and what I truly am. Now, in stage 4, we weren't really sure who and what we truly were. We just knew that the way that we were acting, the way we were being was definitely not working, was creating a lot of problems. But once we move beyond the stage 7, the resolution of trying to be and trying to make something happen, once we come to be very successful at that and recognize that we're still not satisfied with this, it launches us into a whole nother world. And that's the world of really shedding and letting go of all those things that we have built upon ourselves, that we have convinced ourselves that we are, that society has laid on top of us, that family has laid on top of us. As that starts to shed away with the resolution stage, and we drop into that emptiness of stage 8, the peace of just being. Moving into stage 9, we're able to really get the realization, the experience of, wow, the form that I am typically so focused on is not the real reality. There's something else behind that form that's sparking, or that's energizing. And the end result is this form that we experience in our 3D reality. But there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. And the deeper and deeper we go behind the scenes, the more of an impact we get to have on how this physical form comes about in this 3D dimension. So dropping into emptiness, dropping into the realization that we are truly the conscious observer rather than that's what's being observed. This sets up the relationship that we need to have that bigger impact that most of us, especially from stage 4 through stage 7, are really desiring to have. And if there's one thing that is drastically going to change our society, drastically going to change the human potential to continue to survive on this planet, it's going to be the recognition that anytime we focus excessively on the materialistic form, we start to lose our true essence. We start to lose connection to what we truly are, and we get ourselves lost. We lose that light. And by losing that light, we create a lot of damage, a lot of suffering, because we are such powerful individuals, beings, and collectiveness, because we are that light behind the form of existence. And in stage 9, there's so much energy. Stage 8 is the very beginning, but stage 9 is the full embodiment of that energy rich state. And in energy rich, it's not about this or that. It's about, oh my gosh, look at how it all working together. It's so amazing. It's moving forward. Wow. Look at the whole rather than the bits and the pieces. So in stage 9, it's not about surrendering or giving up or rejecting the awareness of physical form. It's about the observation of physical form as it's in relationship to the non-physical form, the bound energy and the unbound potential that comes through and energizes and activates and ends up creating and manifesting, being expressed as that bound physical material form. So stage 9 is not about a this or a that. It's not about surrendering any one thing. It's about letting go into what we really are. And I've said this before, and I will say it again and again. What we really are is relationship. We are interconnectedness. The observer and the observed, the potential and the form, the wave and the particle. But we have to have a very, very large amount of energy for this physical structure that we experience 3D reality through to be able to process that information coherently. If we just have bits and pieces of that ability to process, well, you may get some of these experiences, but it's not really going to be practical. It's not really going to be something that we're going to be able to bring both sides of the equation into balance. One side will always end up kind of being more lopsided than the other one. Another thing to acknowledge is that because this is such a high energy state, because this is such a broad awareness, because this is so awe-inspiring as an experience, this is also not the place that we want to expect change to not occur. In this experience, this is the full embracing of change, and in that, this experience will come and go. This is not a place to live your life. It is very, very dynamic. It's very, very disruptive. Okay. And there's a time to be disruptive, and then there's a time to be stabilizing. There's a time to focus on the unbound. There's a time to focus on the bound. There's a time to focus on the potential and dream. And then there's a time to put rubber to the road and actually bring that dream into this 3D dimension. Okay. So in that, stage 9 is really the recognition that there is this observer, and it's observing this constant process of change, and being attached too much to the observer is equally as destructive and dysfunctional as being attached too much to which that's being observed. So stage 9 is really the embracing our nature, which is the relationship of being able to ebb and flow back and forth between the observer and that which is being observed. And the more and more we do that, the more and more the whole starts to reveal itself. Okay. But like I said before, be very, very aware of when we start to experience stage 9. And some of you may not experience stage 9 today. And that's totally fine. The first time that you ride a bicycle, you didn't just jump up and run and ride, 100 miles. So just recognize all of these exercises are really to fuel ourselves into this process. And during that process, there is an experiential part of that process, but it's not like, some kind of button that you flip or switch, that you automatically do this exercise and then boom, everything is light and love and you're able to see beyond the physical form. Okay, so just be aware, acknowledge the process, embrace this life and death process, because if you have yet to experience that light beyond the form, when you do, I promise you, that comes right along with a death of a part of yourself that you have been identifying with, that you have been attached to in the past. So stage 9 is incredibly, incredibly disruptive, equally as disruptive as it is blissful, as it is peaceful, as it is amazing and awe-inspiring. And I don't want to overhype this. It is indescribable. But just recognize you will not come into nor out of this experience being alive in the same way that you were before. Because that is a very unnatural and unhealthy expectation and way to be in this constant experience of change. So the more and more we as individuals, the more and more we as society can embrace death, the more we can celebrate the moments and the experiences that make up this process that we call life. And the more focused we are on experiencing and celebrating and relishing in this experience, this constant changing experience that we call life, the more of that we're going to create for ourselves and for others. But we're not going to be able to do that if we're attached to trying to keep things the same, trying to identify with something as solid and stagnant in an ever-changing universe. So the embracing of death in our society is a very, very necessary and natural next step in order to gain the ability to really enjoy life. Death is not about doom and gloom and blackness and despair. We only get into that state because we're not putting our focus on celebrating the life. We're focused on the end. We're focused on the absence. We're focused on what we've lost, not what we gained through that experience. But like I said before, this is a process. And each one of you that are watching this, whether you're watching this here and now in this present time space, or if you're going to be watching this in the future, recognize that you are a part of bringing about this very, very necessary change. And you do that by embracing this process in your own life, where you are, in the ways that are unique and authentic to you. Embracing that core potential, that basic energy, that basic light that you truly are in that ever-changing expression of form. So what's unique to you is not going to be the right thing for everyone. And what's the right thing for everyone is not going to be the right thing for you. Where you are on your journey, who you are as an individual, all of that is a representation of how that light, how that energy is able to be expressed through the physical form. And if you're not liking the physical forms, guess what? You have an option, and that's to embrace death, which is not an end. It's just the transformation into something different, something new. And then that something different and something new will transform into something else and transform into something else and transform into something else. So our goal in all of this is to experience more, is to experience the real truth behind the physical form. And one of the doorways to do that is through the dying process, the death process. So I hope for each one of you that at some point in your life, you are able to embrace death before you die. And if we do that consciously, if we do that willingly, if we do that curiously, we won't be dragged through that process. Because again, the death process is a part of life. You will experience it. You'll experience it around you. You will experience within you. You will experience it for the physical body at some point. But if you choose it, if you move into it with love and with grace, there's a lot more benefit, a lot more reward on the other side for this life here and now. So this is a really heavy topic. And this is a topic that is as beneficial to explore as it is resisted. None of us would be in the situation that we're here in right now, where we're at home, where our kids have, my kids have not really played with other kids in a few weeks, where, physical touch for those of us that don't have family members has been a challenge. Okay. All of those healthy, very natural, very normal parts of life have been taken away, all based on our fear of death. And I'm not saying that making the change in this coronavirus exposure curve is a bad thing. I'm not necessarily saying that the sequestering is a bad thing. If we can give someone a little bit more quality of life by protecting them, then I'm definitely all for it. But as we go through this process, what if one of the things that we learned from this process, what if one of the things that we took away from this process whenever everything is opened back up, or if it's opened back up, what if one of the things that we took away is to drop the fear of death? How differently would your life be if there was zero resistance and fear of the death process? How much more of the present moment could you enjoy? How much more of your relationships would you enjoy? How much more of the physical world would you enjoy if death was not something that was resisted, but actually something that was celebrated? So if we as individuals can come through this and all of the chaos that's been created out of the fear of death, if we can come through this and learn to embrace the death process, to celebrate the death process, which gives us the ability to celebrate the life process even more so, if that's the thing that we come through this on the other side with, then I say it was totally worth it. Now, you may very well have a different opinion, and that is totally and completely fine. But just think, how much better would your life be if change was celebrated rather than resisted? If death and life were celebrated equally for what they are? So moving forward, I'd like to open this up to some questions before we get into the actual exercise. So if anyone has any questions, please, please, please type them in. You can unmute yourself. This is a heavy, heavy topic for most of us. And so let's dive into this. Let's create a dialogue about this topic, this conversation. So Barbara says, it sounds like the motivation from where it's coming from is about fear or love. And yes, it's much more about love whenever we can celebrate the death process, because you are in love with the times that you have. You're in love with the experiences that you have. And you're able to dive into that even more so because you know they're not going to last. So, Barbara, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I can share. Um, well, I think it's interesting. I've lost a couple of people in my life. Um, and the last one, very important, my closest friend, I was able to see from another perspective, and it's not easy to put in
Oh, Barbara, we can barely hear you.
words.
There we go. That's better.
Okay, just I have to. Okay, so I go again. So I was saying that I've lost a couple people very close, and that it's not easy to put in words, but I can see what you are saying, where I was able to feel the gratitude and the joy to know, in this specific case, my best friend, and almost like just feel that love, right? And I used to say that he was like my soul friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was exactly right. Like that's how I felt later. So I could see there it was about love fully, and then um sometimes when it comes from fear of what I'm going to do when someone died, that is a very different experience, which I've also gone through. That's why I mentioned that. It also it feels to me like it's kind of like if you come from fear or love,
Yes.
but you will absolutely miss the person, right? Either way.
Yeah, absolutely. But we can blend that missing in. Okay, we can blend that in with the love. We can blend that in with the gratitude for the experiences that we gained by having the time that we did with them. So this is not a strategy, because like I said, it's not about this or that. It's not about pain or pleasure. It's really about being able to experience the fullness, and experience the fullness is sometimes experiencing pain with pleasure, or pleasure with pain. So you're right, Barbara, it's not like we are not going to miss the things that we lose. We're not going to reminisce about those things that we lose. But the darkness, the closing down, the dropping in, the sucking of all of the love and all of the joy that comes out when we only focus on the missing, when we only focus on the absence or death, is a very, very different experience whenever we're missing and desiring those experiences again, and we have the love, gratitude, and joy for having had them in the first place.
Yes.
So thank you, Barbara. That was very, very helpful. And just raise your hand if anybody else, or type in if you want to say anything. And as we're waiting for this, one of the most profound philosophers of the 20th century. No, it was the end of the 20th century. Whenever this, no, I take that back. 21st century, very early 2000s. Okay, the most profound philosopher of our time, Yoda from Star Wars, said, "You have to train yourself to let go of all that you're afraid to lose, because fear is going to eventually lead into anger. Anger will eventually lead into hate, and hate is the pathway to the dark side." So the more and more in our lives we can die before we're dead, the more and more we can train ourselves to let go of all that we're afraid to lose, the more energy, the more openness, the more expansion that we have to embrace the experience of this present moment and to make the most out of this experience of this present moment. And this present moment may not be everything that your heart desires, but if you can embrace it, if you can love it, if you can enjoy it, how much of a better life would that be? A series of moments that you love and enjoy and embrace, as opposed to a series of moments in which there's pain, there's only loss, there's only despair, there's only craving, there's only wanting. Not that any of those things are bad. They're very, very hard to deal with unless they are in relationship with the other side. Relationship with that light beyond form. So everybody find a comfortable spot. Just relax. You can sit down. You can lay down. Find some space. Find some place in which you can just sprawl out and just be and relax. Breathe in the nose and out the mouth. All the way in and all the way out. All the way in and all the way out. Going ahead and placing our palms, palm over our hands, palm over palm at the very, very top of our sternum. All the way in, all the way out. Move from the top of the sternum down to the solar plexus. All the way in, all the way out. Move right over the belly button. All the way in, all the way out. Now move back and forth between these three places, or explore more if you want to, and identify which one of these three spaces is the easiest to drop into, is the most connected, the most peaceful, the most calm, the one that you can just let go and the process just happens. For most of us, that place or space is going to be somewhere in the exhale, but you also might find it in the inhale also. You might find it in the expansion of the chest or the relaxation and collapsing in. You might find it in the flow of energy coming in from the inhale and then out from the exhale. So play around with these three spots. Play around with those three different strategies and identify which way, which lens, which perspective is the most productive for you to find that place or space of peace, ease, and home. Okay, when you've identified your favorite spot, just go ahead and identify a spot, one of these three spots ideally, or if you want to branch out from there, that is very disconnected. That's a challenge. That place or space of peace and ease is either very hard to find, the collapse doesn't fully happen, the exhale doesn't fully happen effortlessly. There's some numbness, there's some disconnection. Whenever you touch that area, the mind just kind of wanders and it's like, oh, I'd rather be any place but this place. All the way in and all the way out, identifying which one's your favorite. We're going to call that spot number one. And which one's the most challenging one or your least favorite. We're going to call that spot number two. Playing with that place or space of spot number one, fully experiencing this present moment just as it is, without the desire to change it, just curiously exploring the nuances of spot number one as you fully drop into that place or space of peace and ease. Now move to spot number two. Explore spot number two, fully letting go, exploring the other side, and move back to spot number one, all the way in, all the way out. All the way in, all the way out. Continue to explore. Continue to explore. Moving to spot number two, repeat after me. Sometimes it seems I am so helpless. Go. Explore spot number two fully, and then move back to spot number one. All the way in, all the way out. Fully exploring, fully dropping into that place of peace, ease, connection. Now place one hand on spot number 1 and one hand on spot number 2. Breathe into spot number 1 fully and let it go, dropping into that place of peace and ease. Breathing into spot number 2 fully, dropping into that place or space of peace and ease. Back to spot number 1 and back to spot number 2. Back and forth, creating the rhythm, creating a flow within the body between spot number 1 and spot number 2. Now simultaneously inhale into both. Fully expand, fully inhale, fully flow into spot number 1 and 2 and let go, collapse, relax, exhale, flow out. Fully into spot number 1 and 2, fully out of spot number 1 and 2. One more time, fully into spot number 1 and 2 and letting go of spot number 1 and 2. Repeat after me. I have different rhythms. Go. I have different parts. Go. Some of these parts I really like. Go. Some of these parts suck. Go. But these are all my parts. Go. Fully breathe all the way into spot number 1 and spot number 2 as if they are one spot. And now take your palm over your palm, put it directly over spot number 2, fully breathe into spot number 2, increase that uncomfortable tension and tightness and disconnected and make it worse, make it worse, make it worse. So stuck, make the sound of the stuckness go. So incredibly stuck. Oh, make that sound. And then relax, breathing in the nose and out the mouth fully into spot number 2. All the way in and all the way out and all the way in and all the way out. Now take one hand, keep it over spot number 2, and put the other hand and plug up one nostril all the way in and all the way out and all the way in and all the way out and all the way in and all the way out and all the way in and all the way out and all the way in and all the way out. Switching nostrils back and forth, breathing into spot number 2, fully expanding, fully inhaling, fully flowing, fully exhaling, fully collapsing, fully releasing that energy all the way. Intense breathing, keep going, intensify it. Increase the amount of energy that you are experiencing. Increase the amount of energy from the nose into spot number 2. In the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose. Intense, intense, intense. And then repeat after me with intensity. Enough of this. Go. This will not continue. Go. I am more than this. Go. I deserve more than this. Go. We are more than this. Go. We deserve more than this. Go. And now take your hand, palm over palm, move it away from spot number 2, straight off the body. Okay. Circling spot around in a clockwise direction. Right over the space above spot number 2, breathing in the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose, synchronizing the circular motion around spot number 2, around and around, synchronizing with that breath, in the nose, out the nose, 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 in the nose, out the nose. Slowly start to move your hands towards your body in a spiraling motion, in the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose, all the way into spot number 2, where you're touching the skin of spot number 2 and you're circling it around and you're moving it with the breath, in the nose, out the nose, in the nose, out the nose. Repeat after me. I'm ready. 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 And let go. Drop the arms down by the side. Breathe in the mouth and out the nose. In the mouth and out the nose. Fully sucking in all that life has to offer through the mouth. And out the nose. Breathing all of the experiences of love and joy that you've ever had or ever will have, breathing that out of the nose into the rest of creation, drawing in all the light and love, exhaling all the light and love back into the creation through their nose. Reach out with your hands straight in front of you as if you are holding a massive, massive beach ball. Okay, I want you to play. Bring your hands together. When do you notice, as your hands are moving together, how big of a beach ball can you hold? If you bring your hands slightly together, you'll notice some sort of very, very subtle or slight resistance. You might notice a warmth or a tingling in the palm of your hands. So pay attention and play with exactly how big is your beach ball. Is it a foot wide? Is it 2 feet wide? Is it 4 feet wide? Is it 8 feet wide? You don't even have enough arm space. Hold that beach ball way out in front of you. Push the back of your head into the chair or the floor that you're laying on. Push your shoulder blades into the floor or the chair. Push the lower part of your pelvis, push right above your butt into the floor or the table so that the back of you is anchored into the floor. And with your fingers reaching out, holding that big spherical ball directly in front of your or above your heart. Imagine that there are bungee cords that are attached to each one of your fingers, and on the other side of that bungee cord is different dimensions, different universes, different galaxies, different versions of yourself, different experiences, all tied to fully embracing the love of the present moment. Those bungee cords are stretching the fingers forward while the shoulders, the shoulder blades, the back of the head, the pelvis is pushing into the chair or the table. As the fingers are stretching and the arms are stretching, breathing in the mouth, sucking all of the grace and love in, out the nose, and giving it back to existence. Stretching the fingers toward all of those potential possibilities. The shoulder blades are pushing in, but the heart is moving forward. The throat is opening up and moving towards that big ball. As we inhale, we're filling up the space in between our hands. We're filling up that ball with all of the love and the awe and the beauty that exists in the entire universe. We're filling it up. And as we exhale, that ball is just showering us with all of that amazing experiential beauty and joy and awe. And as we're exhaling, we're blowing all of that back into the universe, adding more love, adding more beauty, adding more grace, reaching with the hands, reaching with the chest, all the way to the very, very tips of the fingers and beyond, compressing the head and the shoulder blades and the pelvis back into the floor, reaching all the way in the mouth, all the way out the nose. Reaching, expanding, and repeating after me. I feel so much love. I feel so much energy. I feel so much perfection. I feel the energy within and around the physical form. Everything is energy. Everything is wonderful. And just play. This is the time to be blissed out. This is the time to be. This is the time to just be and experience whatever it is that you're experiencing in this present moment. Experience the space around the body. Experience the space within the body. Experience the mental space. Experience the emotional space. Experience the soul space. Experience the space in between the different spaces. In between the atoms, in between the particles. Experiencing the space in between thoughts, in between feelings, in between circumstances. And when you're ready, come back into this dimension. Come back into the room, come back into your physical body. Allow the arms to just be, wiggle the fingers, wiggle the toes, bend the elbows, bend the knees, move the shoulders, move the hips. What do you notice is different? Go ahead and sit on up, stand on up. Come back to the computer. And if anybody had an interesting experience, or if anyone didn't have the experience that they wanted, do me a favor and type that in, or raise your hand, or unmute yourself, and share what you did or what you wanted to experience. Go for it, Amory. What you got?
So I took your advice from the other day and played around with my shoulder as maybe one of the spots. And the second I went to it, I started weeping.
Yes.
Just weeping. And so I went ahead and used that as spot number 2. And when we got to, I mean, I wept through most of it. And I did wake with some sadness kind of in my heart today anyway. So, I mean, it was kind of already at the surface, ready to come out. But then when we got to the part with our arms out, I continued to weep, but they became tears of joy. And I just feel so much bliss. It was very intense.
And that's exactly what we were talking about before. The experience of crying, the experience of weeping can be experienced in so many different ways. It can be sadness, it can be joy and bliss. So the more and more we embrace the ability that we have to experience things differently by the way that we shift our energy, by the way that we observe things, by our perspectives, the less and less we get dragged into this good or bad or right or wrong type of crazy town.
Right.
Awesome, Amory. So proud of you.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to share an experience?
Sure.
Yes, go for it, Barbara.
By the end, I felt very grateful, which is always a very good sensation.
Yes.
And also, I felt tired because I couldn't sleep very good. And after, like right now, I felt energized.
Yes.
So that's also very good. Like
good.
Yeah.
So use that energy to enjoy the moment.
Yes.
All right. So unless anybody else has anything they would like to share, thank you guys so much for joining. I know that this was a weird one. I know that This can be a very triggering one for a lot of people, whether you're watching this in person or you're watching this later on. Thank you so much for acknowledging those feelings and those emotions that you have around this topic and this concept, and being able to be wise enough and to be able to be intelligent enough to take in the information, even though the feelings may be telling you something different. So thank you for rising above that duality that gets so much of the human population stuck and into the stage 1, 2, or 3. So thank you so much. I love you, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Oh, no, actually, we will see you this evening. Please, please, please let everyone that you know, tonight at 6 p.m., we are going to be going over the introduction and the overview of SRI, of these breathing exercises that we have been doing. We're going to be talking a little bit about why we do them, what is happening, what's the point. And yeah, Connie just put up the link. So please share this with as many people as you possibly can. This is going to be a free class. We're not quite sure how much longer we're going to keep these as free classes. So share this information with as many people as you possibly can right now, because again, the more of us that come through this quarantine experience more energized and healthier and with a better experience and understanding of what the truth and the reality of existence really are, the closer we're going to be able to getting humanity as a whole to make this shift, which is going to be necessary to correct a lot of the problems that we've created, because we are viewing things from a very distorted standpoint. So tonight at 6 p.m., tune in. We're going to try to get the Facebook thing fixed, but we'll have our YouTube page will be up. You can join us on Zoom. So I love you. Thank you very much, and we will see everybody soon.